Okay, so I'll switch to English. Sorry. Thank you again for inviting me. Okay, so today it's about learner corpora and specifically about a learner corpus of Czech. So I'll speak first about learner corpora in general, then about error annotation, which is something specific to learner corpora, then about those Czech learner corpora. Then we have various releases of something that has been annotated a long time ago, and we somehow couldn't figure out how to properly present it for users. So that will be this part, and then about something that is either work in progress or plans, and then lessons learned. So basically the talk will be about how not to do learner corpora, because we have made some lessons, hard lessons. So learner corpora. So usually when you speak about learner corpora, so we mean a corpus of text that were produced by non-native speakers of a language, learners of that language. But sometimes it could be also children. Yeah? So children also learn their native language, so that could be also a learner corpus, usually in some school environment. So it's not usually children how they speak at home, but in school, so they are learners at school. It could be also spoken, yeah? We have spoken learner corpora. At first, the first examples of learner corpora were produced by publishing houses, English of course, for learners' dictionaries. They found it very useful to check which kind of errors, mistakes the learners make, and then build those dictionaries from it. And then later for research, so this is probably the most famous learner corpus, which consists of balanced samples of English from various speakers of various languages, first languages. So I think it's always like 200,000 samples from Polish, Czech, Maltese, Chinese, and so on. It's useful for quite a few people. Yeah, it's meant for teachers also, but teachers really rarely use it. Yeah, you have to pre-process it somehow. So usually it comes to the teachers and students in the form of textbooks or curricula or things like that. Error annotation. That's something that's special to learner corpora, and it's about correcting errors and identifying them as well. And so sometimes we don't like using errors, or some people don't like to use it because it's somehow thought as labeling someone that he's not as good as someone else. So we talk about non-standard forms rather than errors, but I don't really think it's so crucial. Why is learner corpus useful? Well, those errors are certainly very, very important. Which type of errors do various groups make? Now, if you have those data, so you can also check how people proceed in learning the foreign language, and then you can find what sequence of how to present the phenomena in a foreign language in an optimal way. So maybe it's not very nice to present them with the whole declension table of nouns for Polish, for example. So you pick the most frequent or the easiest case first, and then proceed. And you can check if this works using that learner corpus. You can also be interested in how the first language influences the language that students use. And you can also try to identify which phenomena are underused and which are overused. Yeah? So maybe some students overuse infinitives, and some other students overuse subordinated clauses. So you can find that. And then this may already be something specific to spoken corpora. Why do really people, when they speak foreign language, sound foreign? So maybe someone would really like to sound native. It's hard to really achieve. So why this doesn't work? So you can check for that. So about annotation. So as in standard corpora, you have the so-called linguistic annotation, tags, structures. But in learner corpora, you can decide whether you actually want to annotate the original text, including those non-standard things, or whether you want to annotate the normalized text, the corrected one, or whether something in between. So that's one thing. And of course, nowadays you usually do it automatically or semi-automatically if it's this non-standard version. So maybe you want to check whether it's really correct. And so this is linguistic annotation. Now, error annotation is about correcting and categorizing errors, and you hardly have any standards. It's very different from linguistic annotation. You have very many annotation systems, and people cannot really come to some agreement on how to really build such a system for annotating errors. And it's usually manual, with some exceptions. So, error annotation. The first question is, what is the standard? So if I want to correct something, so how do I correct it? Or if I want to identify an error, so is it an error at all or not? So, for example, in Czech, which has this large difference between colloquial version and prescriptive or literary version, so maybe it's correct if the student uses those colloquial forms, but maybe not. Maybe you want the student to speak like this prescriptive version of Czech. So this is the first issue. And then maybe you don't really want to identify all the differences between the way the student writes or speaks and some standard version of Czech, no matter which one it is. Maybe you just want to say, oh, this is okay. People would understand that student, and you don't really have to fix all the grammatical details that are kind of redundant in communication. You don't really need to have proper agreement in all cases to be understood. And then the last point is that some people assume that those students of a foreign language, they do not really have that language in their mind, but they have something in between. It's something in between the first and the target language, the second language, and it's assumed to be something that has some real existence. Maybe people share that language among themselves, and it, of course, it develops as the people are more fluent, and maybe you are interested in that language, and maybe the whole issue of identifying errors is a wrong way. Maybe you really want to investigate that language, how it develops, but it's quite tricky, and not really many people pursue this path, like assuming this interlanguage. So these are like theoretical things. Now, so that was what is correct, right? Now, which categories you would like to use for dealing with the language? So, the standard way is to assume the levels that you have in most linguistic theories, like orthography, morphology, syntax, semantics, style, and you classify the errors along those dimensions. You can have details for each dimension, and it's pretty obvious that you then classify this as an error in tense, and this as an error in case, and so on. Well, what else? What are alternatives? Well, you can really label the text as for understandability, but then it's hard to pinpoint to specific words or expressions that they are actually not understandable, because usually it's something larger. It's maybe the whole sentence, or maybe even the whole paragraph. Or you can label it with some similarity measure according in respect to some native speakers' texts. So that's also possible. So anyway, in error annotation, so if you have that that correction in mind, so you correct, yeah, and you put some correction in there. It's usually called target hypothesis, because you don't really know how the student would write that thing if he would be a native. Yeah. So usually you just assume that it will be something. That's why it's a hypothesis. So these are more or less synonyma for target hypothesis. Then if you sometimes you feel, well, maybe the student actually meant that, but that's not the correct version. Maybe there is something better, and maybe there is even something better, yeah, according to those levels of traditional grammar description. So you want to make successive corrections, maybe just spelling, and then morphology, and then morphosyntax, and then maybe lexicon. Sometimes you want to say, oh, maybe this is one option, but there may be other options how to correct that. So maybe they would be even semantically different. So that's also an issue. Yeah. So do you really want parallel hypotheses? Yeah, it's nice theoretically, but in practice it's really hard. Yeah. So if you want to build a corpus and then search even among those hypotheses, so it can be difficult. And then if you make some correction, so you see that actually it doesn't fit in the context. So maybe you have to fix something in the context to make the correction work. So that's called follow-up or secondary corrections. But these are really not corrections of something that the student did wrong. Yeah? So it's something that just occurred because you corrected that. So these were the corrections. And now error tags. So I told you it's hard, people don't agree, no standard text set. And you can see that you can have, it's usually error tags, yeah, like agreement or word order, things like that. So you see the number of these tags really differs a lot. Yeah, so we have 26. Now some people have 92, and it depends if you have some reliable linguistic annotation. So maybe you don't need to decide whether this agreement error is within a noun or verb. Maybe you can just say this is agreement error, and the fact whether it's nominal or verbal, it comes from the linguistic annotation, right? So that's why those differences can be so big. Then you often have an issue that you have an error such as this. Yeah? So many people came, lidi. So that's in standard prescriptive Czech is accusative, but it's wrong in this case, because it's actually quantified by this dużo ludzi, mnoho lidí. So it should be genitive, not something that looks like accusative. Now, is this a spelling mistake? So it's just this little accent on I. Is it a spelling mistake? It could be. Yeah? It probably is, but maybe not. Maybe the person just doesn't know the declension of that noun properly. Yeah? Or maybe she confused the cases. Maybe she or he really meant accusative, but it's genitive. Yeah? Maybe she or he doesn't know that these quantified expressions require genitive. Yeah? So there are many things that you have to decide before you start tagging errors. Maybe you want to tag all options, or maybe you want to pick one of those options or several according to some rules. So that's not too easy. And then one single word can be wrong for different reasons. So Tom threw a party yesterday, so this is hypothetical, yeah? It's not a real example. So you can have something like an infinitive, but that infinitive is not correct. So it was supposed to be something like give a party. So if you just want to correct spelling, so we would just put this accent. But actually, to give has this infinitive. But of course, it's a finite clause, so you have to. So you should have the third person singular form. But because it's yesterday, so you have to put it into past tense, and then you have to correct it into the like lexically, because it doesn't work together. Like give a party, you don't say it in Czech. You usually do a party, not throw a party. So these you can call that those successive corrections, but at the same time you can see it as different dimensions of how you can go wrong in a specific case. Now these follow-up corrections. So she takes care of our rabbits. So this is okay. Yeah, our rabbits. It's in proper case, but it doesn't work with this preposition. So you have to correct the head noun, but then this pronoun is wrong. So you have to correct that. So this is the follow-up correction. That's not actually the problem of the student. It's just something that you want to make right to make the sentence grammatical. Now. All these things were token based. So that was like I have this word and I have to correct that. So I don't really need some complex system to make it work. But sometimes when I do word order corrections, which happens in Czech quite often, because we have this second position clitics, and foreigners often, Polish speakers of course, put those clitics close to the verb, but it should be at the second position in the clause. So it's quite a long distance correction, and it's not easy to do it when you have a token-based system where you are where you can only correct token for token. So there are systems where you are allowed basically to reorder the sentence as you like, without losing the links between those individual words. So that's kind of a parallel corpus, really, with word-to-word alignments preserved. Yeah? So that's quite a demanding option. Then the issue is how to search in such a format, and it's not quite easy. So you have the token-based error annotation. Which you can do basically inline, like really in the text. It's sequence-based, and you just may have some XML formats to deal with that, and you have word for word. You can delete, you can add, maybe you can join and split, but it's hard to do something more. And you have this parallel option, like really doing another version of the text with another tagging. And of course it depends on the language and the error types you want to annotate. Okay, now what we have in Czech. So there is one international project which I mentioned very briefly. It was meant to produce some paradigms for classifying proficiency levels. So if in Czech a student does this type of errors and otherwise is correct in other cases, so it's very likely that he or she is at level A2, for example, or B1. And similar for German and Italian. So that was quite successful project, and you have it online and you can check. In Czech has only 64 1,000 words there, but it's nicely annotated and with syntax and everything. Now the other project is much larger, and it includes native learners. I told you. Then also we have native learners who grew up in families where there is a tradition of speaking Romani, but they are no longer fluent in Romani language, and so their Czech is influenced by that tradition, and also maybe the family has roots maybe in Slovakia, and maybe the dialect of Silesia also comes into question, because those families moved like to the Czech part of Czechoslovakia former via Silesia. So it's quite specific, and also the family surroundings are different than with children who are Gajo. Yeah, so that's the term for non-Romani people. And of course non-native learners. But I will talk mostly about non-native learners part. And we have written and spoken language, but I will talk about written language only. So what we have for native learners, also we have speech and essays. That's the red parts are really online, and you can search in them using context. The same for parallel corpus. Then you have for Romani children, and we have it only for downloading. Yeah, it's not searchable yet. Yeah, and then we have something mixed. So half is Romani and half is native, like properly native. It's difficult to talk about this, and this is searchable in a new tool that's not context, it's not, and it's called Tatok, and I will tell you a bit more about that. So for non-native learners, we have about 1 million words. It's transcribed handwritten essays. We have quite a few languages, so 3 groups basically. That's how we differentiate them. So it's Slavic, other Indo-European, or non-Indo-European. So the largest part are Russian speakers, and then Chinese, and then Polish. Yeah, so Polish is quite high. We have some searchable versions. So in context, you can have at least one version properly equipped with metadata. Then we have a version that is close to how. To that parallel corpus idea, yeah. So you really have all the word order issues solved, but unfortunately it's not with metadata, and it's in Slack. Sorry, this is hardly visible, but you can see it maybe in the presentation when you download it. And this one is for Tatok, so this is one of these corpora. Okay, downloadable. It's from here. Now it's about 8,000, more than 8,000 texts, 111,000 sentences, about tokens, words, so about 1 million. Some part of it is manually annotated using this parallel system, so including word order and all the things. And it's really not much, yeah. So it's just 6,500 sentences. Something more is annotated as well, but only corrected, not classified. So it would be about 1,000 more. Yeah. But we are still far behind the total number, and so many words. And a part of it is doubly annotated. We have so many different students. Yeah, some wrote more than one text. 54 different first languages, quite a few. All proficiency levels, although C2 is very poorly represented, and always more women than men. Yeah, and this is the usual size of text that we have. Now this is how many texts we have for different proficiency level, and different first language group. So you see that the Slavic group is represented best, yeah? So more than maybe 2/3 or maybe more even, and then A1 Slavic is quite a strong number. But you may ask, how do we know which level it is? Yeah? So it's usually what the teacher in the class where the texts were collected said. Yeah? So it's not really reliable. Yeah? So it can be that those A1 Slavic students are actually much better than B1 Chinese students. Yeah, because it hasn't been checked properly. Yeah. So this is according to the first languages, and you see that Russian really rules over everything else as the first language. So it's nearly 60%. Then comes Chinese, then Polish. In terms of words, in terms of text, it's well, Polish texts are quite long actually. So that's why you have this difference. Then Ukrainian, Korean, English, German, Japanese. This is Kazakh, I think, and Vietnamese, and so on. And there are quite a few others. So the problems which we have with what I said before is that it starts with transcription. Well, all the texts were transcribed from handwritten manuscripts, and we thought that it would be nice to not to burden those transcribers with some difficult software, so they just did it in plain text editor, like Microsoft Word most of the time. And of course there was some transcription markup, and that turned to be a big problem. And because it is not consistent, the transcription markup didn't come out right. So in the following projects we never used that again, and that's a problem with this. We still haven't corrected everything. And then we have this gross imbalance of first languages and proficiency level. Sorry, error. Now, how can you use that? Yeah, so these are some data, and now we have some releases of that. So here we have something that you can search for all of them in context. Yeah. So just a plane is except for for all of them. Just a plane is without annotation, without metadata, just divided into, here is even Romani ethnolect, foreigner, Slavic and non-Slavic foreigners. So here you have these just 3 groups, and it's 2 million words. It's actually the largest, but you have also the Romani kids here. Now this is a corpus where you have only foreigners. But it's only 1 million words. It's actually the whole Czeski corpus that has been collected until 2 years ago. But you don't have manual annotation at all. You have only automatic annotation, including some attempt at error annotation, automatic correction, and automatic classification of the correction as compared with the original version. And certainly linguistic annotation, tagging of the source and the target. Then we have something that is manually annotated tag, but no metadata. That's the source that's you can search for in a special software, in a special corpus manager that understands the parallel annotation. And unfortunately, it cannot deal with metadata. Maybe someday, but not too soon at the moment. Then we have something that was a kind of trick to produce at least something. Yeah? Because if you have that complex annotation, you cannot really search for that in a standard corpus search tool, because it's the standard corpus search tool we have is Manati, that's more or less the same as CQP, and it's really token based. And if you merge, if you join or split words or use these word order corrections, so you don't really know how to represent it in this tabular format or this vertical format that's the input for these tools. So here we did something that's really against maybe all principles of corpus linguistics, namely that the base of the corpus is the correction. Yeah? So the normalized text, which looks nice and can be nicely annotated, is the thing that we annotate with the original version of the text. Yeah? So something that doesn't fit that, so all these splittings, joinings, word order changes, they just get lost. You just have the indication that something there was this kind of mistake in this text. And you can search for, in there nicely, and it works, but it has this problem. Now this so this was this version 1. Version 2 is a step further. It's something close to this linear format, this inline format. But it has, I'll show you later, it has some properties which let you really annotate even more difficult things, like splitting, joining, not really long distance word order changes. So there are things that are not finished yet, but part of the data is downloadable. So this is an attempt to annotate really morphemics of how people do forms in Czech as a Slavic language, and of course morphology and morphemics is so important. So this really is concerned with morphemes and maybe even vowels. So it's something that I don't want to spend much time here because I wouldn't manage. And this is an attempt to go in the opposite direction and try to annotate learner texts according to what the person really probably had in mind. And of course it would be ideal if it would be semantics, so maybe chunks of words would be treated as some semantic role, filling some semantic role. But here it was done using the universal dependencies functions, so dependency labels for subject, object, and so on. And it's something close to semantics, and it doesn't care about morphology or agreement errors at all. Yeah, it just tries to make this right. And eventually we want to merge all these annotations into one corpus, so that you would have the option to search along all those dimensions and see them also in the result. Okay, so this is about the first corpus that has no annotation, no metadata. But still you can use it. Yeah. So for example, in Czech you have in Polish too, you have prepositions that are sometimes vocalized and sometimes not. And so foreigners often assume that you can write a preposition s or z. Yeah. So we have this difference, s or z. Without vocalizing, so vocalized version would be se or ze. But if the word is followed by another sibilant, so you have to vocalize it. So if you put in this CQL query, so you can get these types of errors, right? So this is not correct. So even in such a corpus you can search for errors, and then you can see how frequent those errors are. Yeah? So it should be reversed, like se sebou, se zahradou, se synem. Right? So these are frequencies. Manually annotated chessels without metadata. Now I have to talk a bit about this multi-layered system where you have parallel versions. So the idea was to do it like based on a grammar. It should take into account those word order issues, and we opted for the most sophisticated type of error. So if you had a choice between a spelling error and a morphosyntactic error, so we always tagged it as morphosyntactic error because we assumed that the other types could be either derived from that type of error or tagged automatically, which in some cases we managed. This is multi-level. So we have basically 3 levels, but level 1 or tier 0 is level 0 or tier 0 is just the original text. Tier 1 is meant for spelling errors and morphology errors which lead into a non-word, something that doesn't exist in Czech. And then in tier 2 we get all the rest, so word order changes, agreement. So we can have an existing Czech form here, but it doesn't agree properly with something that it should agree with. So we only correct it in tier 2. So example, these red errors are non-words. Yeah. So sorry. I was afraid that she would not like the famous city of Prague because I would be very unhappy about it. So red ones are not Czech words. Blue ones are Czech words, but not properly formed. So you have to correct them anyway. So for example, here you have agreement between this L participle and the auxiliary. So participle is singular, auxiliary is plural. And it should not be boyal but bal. I was afraid. And then there is something very very strange here. Ona se nebude líbila slavnou Prahu. So it's something like she wouldn't like old Prague. So that would be correct in English, but in Czech the subject has to be Prague. Prague. It's something like in German. So Prague is definitely the subject. So Praha se jí nelíbila. And the system works like on the first level you correct the individual forms as you would do in the linearly based system, and then on the second level, so that's here, you do all the rest. But at the same time, you can point to the form that is the reason for the correction. So here you turned the plural into singular because it should agree with that singular here. And also you had to add this reflexive particle, like to be afraid, bače, ona. So we added this because of that. So it's all manual, nothing automatic. So this is much wilder here. Yeah. So here you have to join the forms at the first level. You have to add this accent here, and you have to capitalize that. Yeah. So these two were the errors. Actually, this should also be in red. Yeah, because you do something about that on the first level. And on the second level, you do all the rest. So you turn the accusative here into nominative because it should agree. It is actually in the valency of that verb to like, and it should be nominative. And same with with the original subject, you turn it into dative actually. And again, you give that reason. And this is a wrong form in Czech. It should be infinitive, and the reason why it's infinitive is because it's assigned this form by this auxiliary. So this is really probably the worst type of example that you may come across as an annotator. Yeah, so that's why I'm presenting it here. And you do the word order changes here as well. And this is even worse. Yeah. You can also turn a prepositional phrase into just one form, and so on. Yeah. So this is the tool that was used for the annotation. It worked quite nicely. You have the original text there, and you do these corrections by dragging a mouse around and picking which type of error. So these are the error types. So these were for individual forms. Actually, all of them. So this is for foreign word with some details. This is for plain incorrect forms. But it is quite rough. So that's why we have this other more detailed annotation within the word. And we have also word boundary errors, of course. And these are errors that we annotate at level 2 agreement, like valency, or it could be also adjuncts, not just arguments. Yeah, so that's why it's called dependency. And then something for complex verbal forms, reflexive forms, missing word order, lexical errors, and so. Well, this use is used for errors such as aspect, for example, where you cannot really fit it into some of those previous errors. And then something that's used for any level. These are error types that are assigned. Some of those error types that are assigned automatically just by comparing the result and the original. Yeah, so you can say, oh, there is an acute accent missing, or there is this Karen accent missing, and there is even something more linguistic. You can say, oh, there is it should be palatalized, but is not. Yeah, so this 0 and 1 always says either it wasn't there and we edit it, or it was there and we had to get rid of that. Yeah, so you have basically some more or less epenthesis, yeah, prosthetic consonants at the beginning, yeah, and so on. So problems. It's biased towards syntax. Maybe you want something else, morphology or something even more abstract than syntax. Some error tags, of course, have low inter-annotator agreement, like lexical errors. Some annotators decided that it's okay like it is, because they were given the instruction that correct as minimally as possible. So if it's grammatically correct, and if it can be understood, so just leave it as it is. Don't try to be stylistically perfect. And some people took it very literally, so they and some people not, because it's still not clear what to do. The annotation was designed. Yeah, that's the problem, because we designed this nice annotation system and we didn't know how to search for that at the time we designed it. So the tool came only later, but it was too late. We didn't finish everything, and it's not the full-fledged tool as people are used to use if they are familiar with context or those other search engines. So this is about the annotation editor. Yeah, it came from this Prague markup language that was originally used for tree banks, and it has a stand of XML-based annotation form. Actually, you have three sets of 3 or 4 files for each text, and they are interlinked, and that's actually the parallel idea. Yeah. Okay. So this is how you would see the sentence if you have it in this annotation editor, and there is some pre-processing going on. So you can also see the formal errors, the errors that you can assign automatically, and you do these arrows, pointing to the source of the error. And you see those incorrect words highlighted, so that you would know that you have to correct that. So there is something like that. So this is the tool that you can use directly on the output of. Well, of course there is some compilation, but no, nothing more. Directly on the output from feed. Yeah? So it's called SELAC, Second Language Query. And it doesn't have any statistics. It doesn't have the support for metadata. So, for example, here you can really search on this level 2 for a tag that's here it's the Czech text set. Yeah, so it's not really mnemonic at all. So it's a numeral. So you are searching for a numeral that's either a cardinal numeral or this indefinite numeral like dużo, mnoho, and you are interested in errors that are classified as agreement errors, and you have to choose which level you want to see. So here you want to see the original. And this is what you get, and it's interesting, but you can't see really what group of students is likely to make these kind of errors. Okay, so I'll tell you. Now, if you go to the Manatee plus context, the search engine I told you about on Monday. So it has also its limitations, but it also has something in addition. Yeah? So it's something I told you already. You here actually it is the manually annotated part of Czesol, and it's based on this corrected text, and you can do something like that. So you search for a word that has a dependency type of error. So that's government or valency, and it has these syntactic functions, and the corrected case is different from the original case. Yeah? So case type of errors in objects, and also it's classified as this dependency type of error. And you get you get the list of like this, and it's manually tagged, and it's basically correct if you go through those cases. So this is the original form. This is the corrected form. This is the head of. This is the governor of that object. Yeah, so the lemma of the governor. So it's usually a verb, and then here are the cases. Yeah, so 3 actually goes with the corrected version, and 3 is dative in Czech, and 1 is nominative. Yeah. Sometimes you don't even have the case because for some reason this wasn't identified as a word, because it's a non-word, of course. Yeah, so even a non-word corrected as something that has a case shows up here. So that's the issue I told you. Now there is an option that I realized is available when I looked at the Cambridge learning corpus, which is probably the largest learning corpus around. It's for English, but it's not freely available. You probably have to pay something, or when they have a tutorial, you have some temporary license for that, and it's actually quite clever. Yeah? So if you have a form such as this, yeah? So it means read through together with the reflexive. Yeah? So you have a prefix, the infinitive of the verb, and the reflexive part, and it should be separated into two parts. But we have two versions of the reflexive, se or se, and it shouldn't be se, it should be se. Now, how do you annotate that in that system? So basically, you use these XML elements to bracket the errors. So you say this is an error, and you have to correct that error, and it's of this type. And here, following the error element is a correction element. So you correct it as by dividing that into the first part and the second part. But the second part needs to be corrected as well. So there is some embedded correction in here. You mark it as well as error element and correction element, and the result is as you like, including the information that it's actually two-stage correction of one form. Yeah? And this is doable in Manatee, maybe in CQP as well, and you can search for that. Yeah? So, for example, if you use a query such as this, so you are looking for a lemma for a preposition S or Z within the corrected element. So that means this is the result of a correction. So it is within the corrected element, and you get something like that. You can put some syntactic sugar on top of these elements, so you see that you have the level here, you have the dependency type of error, and you correct this form into that form. And there is something this is even embedded. Well, somewhere here should be. Yeah, sorry, I should hurry through. Some error types still cannot be shown here because where all the changes are within this vertical format. It's if they are long distance, you really have to rewrite the whole sentence or use some way of indexing them. But then it wouldn't be shown properly in the concordances. Now, because we still couldn't show the whole corpus properly with metadata and with some annotation, so we decided to take the whole set, no matter whether it's manually annotated or not, and do something really fast, and so that it would be available. So what we do is that we tag and lemmatize the original by some standard tool, and then we apply, actually not then, but in some other way, but it doesn't matter. We apply a tool that tries to correct check text, and it's a stochastic tool, and it works with this type of success if you count only the faulty forms. And faulty forms are just, in this case, it's just non-words. And then we retag the corrected text, then we compare the original and the corrected forms and assign those error labels that can be assigned automatically. So, for example, you have a sentence such as this: "That dog loves his friend, the man," and the red forms are simply non-words. So that's fairly easy for the tool, and it managed very well now in that sentence, miraculously. And so this is how the annotation looks like. And ten pes miluje svého kamaráda člověka. So actually only this form is correct, and pass is correct. And here are the error labels. And here are the tags and other annotation for the lemma and tag for the corrected form. So this is really correct, and this is the original. Now it can also do even nicer things. So some guy sleeping in the bed. So this is a non-word. This is a non-word, but actually no. Sorry. This is a correct word in isolation. So this is nominative plural, but you have to correct it because it doesn't fit the context. Here the preposition requires another form. So here it treats the tagger in the original treated it as plural accusative, and in the corrected version it's correctly singular local, and it's correct. And here you have a sign that it was not just a spelling error, but it was a grammatical type of error. Yeah. So in these sentences, of course, it works, but it's too nice. And you can do something similar for search here. So you are looking for a non-word. So this is a tag for a non-word, whereas the corrected version is a noun, and again the cases are different. And you see some of those are not right. Yeah, but I mean the corrections that the corrector did are not right. Yeah, this is what I told you. Okay, now this is the list of the problems that we have. So what we could do differently? So some corpora actually do not use error labels as we do, but rather correct the expressions directly at some level, and so you have maybe several boxes, and one box is for spelling errors, the other box is for grammar errors, the other is for lexical errors, and then you insert your correction directly into those boxes, and you can do even successive corrections this way. Yeah? And you really don't have to think much about assigning labels, except that they are not so detailed. Yeah? So this is another thing. And then someone proposed that errors can be seen as mismatches between linguistic levels. So maybe in some context you can say, well, this is syntactically correct but morphologically incorrect. So this mismatch between those different levels can be seen as that error type, yeah? The mismatch of that type. Okay, then we have the error tags that are used for this morphemics or morphology. And this is the tool actually that can be used for this simplified annotation where you only use those corrections, not error labels. Yeah? And we actually started using this tool because it has many other advantages, like you can annotate. You can build your corpus in there, including transcription, including all sorts of annotation, including automatic annotation within one tool. Then click a button, it indexes your texts, and you can search in them and go back to all sorts of annotation that you've made and correct them and repeat the process. And it's something that everybody can do. Yeah, even someone who is just interested in corpora but doesn't know anything about NLP. So maybe I'll skip this. This is how you see the text in that tool, and you can see you can see the transcription here. This is the original text, the manuscript, and you can click on various buttons and see the corrections at that level. You can also see the verticalized version, or here is XML with various attributes that actually express the correction types. And well, this is the verticalized corpus view. So this is how it's fed then into the corpus search. And you can also have standoff annotation. And you can even have something that simulates this parallel type of annotation, where you have those two levels, and you can interlink those splitting and joining and word order changes like this. Yeah, so you can see something like that, but you cannot edit this. Yeah, you can only see that. These lessons, right? So I'm almost finished. Don't start collecting data before you clearly see the end of it. So it's obvious, of course. Yeah, who would start a business without having the idea how it would work in the end? Yeah, but we did. Yeah. So choice of text that should be collected in a way to give a balanced corpus. Yeah, so we have this imbalanced text. Yeah, so many Russian speakers there, and so many A1 levels as opposed to C2 levels. The transcription should be done in an XML editor, checking for transcription marks online, not in a plain Word. Tools, yeah, something that you could run, including the annotation task manager. Yes, so if you have so many annotators, which we had a long time ago, so it was quite complex, and we had one, but it didn't work properly. And the search tool. So actually, the TATOC that's available now would solve us a lot of issues if it had been available before, or if we would be so good that we could design something ourselves like that. Yeah. So so this is not all, of course, done my work. These are at least these people were involved, and of course I thank you for your kind attention and patience. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Pytanie do sali w takim razie, czy znacie takie korpusy dla polskiego? Są takie korpusy uczniowskie, czy nie? Bo ja nie słyszałem tak naprawdę.
Yeah, as far as I know, there are learning corpora for English that are built in Poznań, yeah, that are quite large and successful, but the learning corpus of Polish, I know that now there is a colleague of mine from Prague, who is actually of Polish descent, is just today at the University of Warsaw, and he's there because of the parallel corpus. But he started a project with the Institute for Southern and Western Slavic Languages about a learning corpus for Polish. Yeah? And they will start using TATOC. Because we are more or less going in the same direction. So the text that we have not annotated manually in this non-native part of the learner corpus, we are right now annotating slowly but surely in TATOC. And we have already annotated one non-native corpus in TATOC, this script 2015, which was about 350,000 words. So that lasted like 3 months, and we did this in this multi-level way. So we were quite happy with the new tool. But we are actually.
Interesuje mnie, na ile można przeszukując ten korpus, śledzić czy zrównolewić sobie zapytanie, czy wyszukanie błędów, typów błędów z pierwszym językiem osoby, która się uczyła. W szczególności chodzi mi na przykład o ten przykład, który pokazywałeś z przyimkami z i okolicznością, to w tych kontekstach, które tam były na przykładzie, oczywiście przyimki użyte niewokalicznie w kontekstach, które wymagają wokaliczności, to mnie się to wydaje typowo polskim błędem. To znaczy typowym błędem Polaka uczącego się czeskiego. I teraz, czy daje się z poziomu przeszukiwania tego korpusu łatwo sprawdzić, weryfikować taką hipotezę, bo ciekawi mnie, czy na przykład Rosjanie również robią takie błędy, a rosyjskich tekstów, znaczy tekstów od rosyjskojęzycznych jest tam dużo.
Already now you could do it in this automatically annotated corpus, this SGT. It's in context, and you can filter texts before you ask your query. Yeah, so I don't know how much time we have. Can I show you? Show it?
Ale wszyscy już wybrałem półtorej godziny, zaczynają denerwować. Na angielskim to coś
na pewno coś jest.
Ale nie w tę stronę, tak, żeby to były polskie jakieś błędy, że jeśli nikt nie chce uczyć polskiego, to
no ale to przecież będzie coraz większy problem, imigracja do Polski jest coraz większa, więc...
Maybe I can show you later, but I'll explain. Yeah? So you either filter your text before you ask your query. Yeah. So these two words you can use either word or lemma as form or lemma for the preposition and the first character of the following word, which could be a sibilant. It's not just S and Z. It could be more. But before that, you click on filtering and check the box where you have the set of first languages, and that will give you only Polish. So that's one option. Or you ask for any first language, and then maybe you want to do a frequency afterwards, and you sort by metadata, and in those metadata you check you check the first language, and that would give you the list. We can try later. So that's combining metadata and those CQL queries, the standard syntactic or morphological. It's pretty standard. Yeah, you really need to have that option. Also, you can do your SQL query using the metadata just in that window. Yeah? So you just have to know the attributes.
Dobrze, to podziękujemy naszemu gościowi jeszcze raz. To jest dobry moment.